The great Scottish philosopher David Hume wrote the Dialogues Concerning Natural Religion, which he had published by his friend Adam Smith after his death in 1779. Hume would not let the dialogues be published before his death because of the huge detrimental impact he thought it would have on his career. Hume was already not offered a position as a professor because of his skepticism and perceived atheism. Hume knew his dialogues would be considered hostile to religion and did not want to further harm his chances at professorship. Hume developed the dialogues as a conversational debate between three fictional philosophical theologians, Philo, Demea, and Cleanthes, over the nature and knowability of God. Pamphilus, a student of Cleanthes, is transcribing this fictional philosophical debate. Hume created Demea to represent a radically orthodox thinker, engaging in a philosophical debate while trying to defend classical theistic doctrine. Demea thinks that the only way to properly go about knowing the divine, apart from special revelation, is to use a priori reason, that is, reason without appealing to the experience or the observable processes of nature. Only this process of using pure reason apart from experience, will lead to orthodox conceptions of God and religion consistent with those of the greatest of theologians, and preserves personal piety. Hume has Cleanthes represent a type of natural theologian, or someone who thinks that knowledge of God can be attained by rational reflection and observation of the natural order. Cleanthes desires to uphold the rational validity of theistic proofs, especially those that are inductive, that is, proofs of God that rely on experience and are not absolute, but probably true. For example, earlier in the dialogues, Cleanthes presents a teleological argument for God for Demea and Philo. A teleological argument, in general, takes the world as a whole, or aspects of nature that seemed to be designed, and argues that a designer must have created the world, and therefore God must be that designer. Cleanthes presents his argument as follows. Look round the world, contemplate the whole and every part of it. You will find it to be nothing but one great machine subdivided into an infinite number of lesser machines, which again admit of subdivisions, to a degree beyond what human senses and faculties can trace and explain. All these various machines, and even their most minute parts, can be adjusted to each other with an accuracy which ravishes into admiration all men who have ever contemplated them. The curious adapting of means to ends throughout all nature resembles exactly, though it much exceeds, the productions of human contrivance, of human design, thought, wisdom, and intelligence. Since, therefore, the effects resemble, and that the author of nature is somewhat similar to the mind of man, though possessed of much larger faculties, proportioned to the grandeur of the work which he has executed, by this argument a posteriori, and by this argument alone, we do prove at once the existence of a deity and his similarity to human mind and intelligence. Cleanthes thinks we should make arguments a posteriori, or from sense experience, not a priori, like Demea, by relying on reason alone. And according to Cleanthes, a good a posteriori theistic argument will be teleological, and point out that the design in the world logically requires the existence of a designer that is outside of the world in order to explain its design. Philo is thought by many to be Hume's representation of himself. While this may not necessarily be true, it is definitely true that Philo is, to a large extent, Hume's mouthpiece to many of his own ideas. Philo, in his arguments against both Cleanthes and Demea's theistic arguments, is trying to incorporate a skeptical understanding of knowledge and rationality. He often critiques his fellow thinkers for appealing to piety and ignoring the rational outcome of their own arguments. Early in the dialogues, Cleanthes replies to Philo, "You propose, then, Philo, to erect religious faith on philosophical skepticism." Cleanthes is being kind of nasty, but he's pretty much right. If Philo does end up believing that someone can know the divine by natural, rational means, This knowledge is erected on the foundation of Philo's philosophical skepticism.